Preview season carries on. The Oklahoma Sooners, 2025, look like maybe a championship contender. We'll talk about all that. Everything that's changed in this team, and trust me, there's plenty. And much, much more all the way through a schedule prediction. Make sure you stick around. Hope you guys are having a good day so far. This is Armchair Analysis, June 17th, 2025. This fine Tuesday. Hope y'all are having, again, a good day so far, a good start to your week. Make sure you check out the rest of the videos in the playlist. We have a full playlist so far of team previews, starting with Florida State all the way through this Oklahoma preview. And I'm really excited to really get going with this because I have a lot of high hopes, I think, for this team this year, and I'm excited to talk about them and really get into what this team is and has potential to be in 2025. As most of you know, and have probably heard at some point through this channel, especially if you've been around for a while, you know I'm a big fan of this team, what John Mateer has potential to be, what Jaden Ott can be, what Ben Arbuckle is, an offensive coordinator. And there's plenty of those things that I'm really excited to get into and delve into. But as always, before we get into 2025, we must talk about 2024. We must talk about the past to get to the present to then talk about the future. And that's where we sit. 2024 was an interesting year. They were 6-7, but 2-6 in SEC play. I almost said Big 12. For those who heard it. A team that averaged 24 points per game last year, 97th in the country. Gave up only 21.5, which was good for top 30 at number 29. And a turnover margin per game of 0. They were dead even, sitting at 59th in college football. Why is that such a big deal? There's really multiple reasons. One was the inconsistency at quarterback, whether it was oh man, why did I do that to myself? I'm trying to find it. Michael Hawkins or Jackson Arnold. No matter how you looked at it, there was inconsistency. There was an inability to really be consistent in the pass game. Turnovers were a big deal last year. It just didn't work. And on top of that, Deion Burks was injured for a portion of last year. Like, things were just not lining up the way that Oklahoma needed them to in order to be successful. On top of that, it was year one without Jeff Levy. It definitely turned things around and maybe turned things upside down in how they wanted to operate things and how things should have went. And I'll be honest, I don't think Brent Venables knew what to do and knew what the right move was. We saw last year Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer really emerge as this fun, really good, like, what could they be if they were at a Power 5 level? And now we get to see them together at Oklahoma as what they were at Washington State. You join that with some other transfer additions in the offense, and specifically in the running back room. Jaden Ott steps in and is going to replace Gavin Sawchuk, but Javante Barnes is still a part of this roster. You got Deion Burks, of course, still there. Jaden Gibson still there, and then you got Javonte Gibson, who's coming over from Arkansas Pine Bluff. Will Huggins is coming over from Pittsburgh State. And then the offensive line is solid. They've all worked together before. This is a experienced group. There's a lot of things to love about this offense. And a team that only scored 24 points a game last year, should everybody stay healthy, this team's going to probably jump close to 30, if not higher than 30. And I don't use that lightly, especially with the SEC schedule. But it's going to be much, much improved. I love Ben Arbuckle. I think that his ability, along with John Mateer's comfort in this offense, is going to help things out. And then again, you got two really good running backs who can do a little bit of everything. It's a really good sign of things to come for this offense. As for the defense, you got 10 of 11 starters, or projected starters, returning from the 2024 team. And that's kind of a staple with Brent Venables, similar to Dabo Swinney, obviously where he comes from. Not really wanting to do and make too many changes on his defense. Obviously, Venables, being a defensive coach, he kind of takes that very seriously, works really hard to make sure that everything stays keep that continuity in the program. The only addition in the portal was Marvin Jones Jr. of Florida State, who jumps over, of course, was a part of what was supposed to be a really solid defensive line, along with Patrick Payton. And I think Marvin Jones Jr., he started out at Georgia. Things were good, but he transferred to Florida State, wanted to jump on board there. Things did not work out quite the way I think he expected. Jump ship again, goes to Oklahoma. Am I going to hold it against him? No. Do I think a third school ever really works out for anybody? No. The answer is no. But we have seen outliers in a lot of cases. This might be one of them. But they're going to be led defensively at coordinator with Todd Bates and Jay Valai. Of course, Brent Venables is going to have a big part of this. You got 3 really smart coaches in control of the defensive side of the football. As for returning leaders from last year, you have Robert Spears-Jennings, who really leads every category he can, outside of interceptions, which is led by Kip Lewis, who's going to be returning with 2 interceptions. Everybody else, though, really follows and wants to follow the example of Robert Spears-Jennings. A guy that I'm really excited about, 2 guys I'm really excited about, both in the secondary, Eli and Peyton Bowen. Both those guys are 2 that I'm really excited to see what they do and how they progress throughout the year as projected starters and potential starters throughout the course of this season. There's a lot of really, really good things, in my opinion, to love about this team. And I think that it helps as well that their schedule, a lot of games are at home. Now, it's not the lightest schedule in the world. There's teams that certainly could be better than I'm projecting them to be. Teams that could be better, just flat out better. But all in all, it's the schedule. I think you get off pretty easy with 4 true road games, and of course the neutral site matchup with Texas, as they have every year in the Cotton Bowl. And one of those road games is against Temple. And you get off relatively easy. You don't play Ole Miss, who will be, a really good team on the road. You don't get Auburn on the road. Michigan is at home. Missouri and LSU both at home. But even then, you get Tennessee and Alabama as road teams as well. And those are not necessarily, in previous seasons, we might have been talking about Tennessee, Alabama being the toughest teams on the schedule. We don't see that anymore. My overall thoughts on this team are kind of interesting. For a team that just went 6-6, for me, this is what I had to write. This team has championship potential. How will they utilize it? How will they go about this schedule that is not easy, but it definitely could be worse? How do they move forward through that and put themselves in position to be maybe a playoff team, maybe a team on the outside looking into the playoffs in 2025, which then you can move forward in the 2026 with a lot of higher hopes, more ability to utilize the portal and excel off of it, and really a championship mentality that I think Brent Venables has carried over and has done a good job of trying to implement. But now it's go time. Now it's time to figure out exactly what you got. You get a perfect game to figure yourself out. Illinois State, that's going to be fine. Michigan, thankfully that's a home game if you're Oklahoma. But that's not going to be easy for either side. At Temple, a good tune-up game, a good way to figure out how you're going to do when you travel. Auburn, so be it. Kent State, couldn't be a better game to play before you play Texas. Then you get Texas and South Carolina. You get Ole Miss, Tennessee, and then you get a bye week separating Tennessee and Alabama. That'll be an interesting one. And then, of course, Missouri, LSU to close it out. The over-under is interesting. It sits at 6.5, and I think that there's a lot of love towards the over, and I think rightfully so. I think if you see 6-6 on the board this year, I think it's time to start talking about Brent Venables as a head coach, really. As for odds to win the SEC, plus 2,500, and I think those are numbers that I might get. Maybe odds to play in the SEC title game, if those are available somewhere. National championship odds, plus 5,500. What I would even like to see here is college football playoff odds. I think this is a team that I would put some money on to maybe make the playoffs. Personally, I don't think I'd put money on them to win a title, but to make the playoffs, I wouldn't be surprised at all. This team kind of feels like, in a lot of ways, like last year's South Carolina team, just in where they could end up, how close they could be to the college football playoff, just right on the outside looking in, much like Alabama last year even. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see what they put together and how they do it. So with all that said, how would I put this schedule together? What would I think their record's going to be based on what I think of this team so far? It's going to obviously start with a win. I think they'll beat Illinois State. There won't be many questions about that. You get Michigan at home. And I think that no matter what, the biggest thing that helps is John Mateer as Oklahoma's quarterback versus true freshman Bryce Underwood, expected to be the quarterback. Now, even if it's Mikey Keene or even Jake Garcia, new to the program at Michigan this year and just committed yesterday, no matter who it is, I think that on top of the Chip Lindsey offense, it's going to be a little tougher than we think for Michigan. I think this is going to be a defensive battle. Two really solid teams, but I wouldn't be surprised if Oklahoma wins by one, maybe even 2 scores in this game. Wouldn't surprise me one bit. I'm taking Oklahoma to win, understanding that it's going to be a really close football game, and it's going to set the tone, I think, for Oklahoma. If they come out and they lose at home, we pump the brakes, certainly. But they come out, get the job done, and do it. It doesn't have to be comfortably, but if they do it and they prove a point of, hey, we are a good football team this year, I think that's where we start to sit pretty well. They're going to beat Temple without any questions. I don't think we really need to worry too much about that. The Auburn game, sure, it's going to be fun. Jackson Arnold coming back to Norman, getting to face his old team, but I think Oklahoma is ultimately going to be better at this point in the season, starting to really find a bit of a rhythm and momentum. They'll get a win over Kent State, not even worried about it, especially have a bye week. Matter of fact, they may use that bye week to prepare for Texas, if we're being honest. I mean, Kent State was 0-12 last year. We're not going to sit here and act like there's really much shot for upset, but it would be just expect them to call off the dogs early, is what I would say here. Now you go and play Texas, and you're going to face Arch Manning, and really there's no reason for either of these teams to not be at the top of their game by this point. Both of these teams being at the top of their game, I think the Texas is the better team, especially for matchup number 1. Should they get more than one, we'll see. But in the regular season matchup, I think that Texas is going to be the better team and get the job done. A big-time emotional win. And how do you back up an emotional loss if you're Oklahoma? Well, it doesn't get much more difficult than going on the road to face South Carolina in Columbia on October 18th, and with really who God only knows what on the line. I mean, it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be tough to bounce back to. And honestly, I don't think they're going to do it. I think that Lenore Sellers, he's going to be at the probably height of his season at this point, and his there's an expectation in Columbia that this team is playoff potential. And I think barring any drastic drop-off from the defense, this is a playoff team, especially the way they closed out the season last year. I would be very remiss to say that they don't make the playoffs, or at least compete to do so. And I think that this is going to be just one of those games where you're coming off of an emotional loss and you got to find a way to bounce back, and you just don't get it done. It's unfortunately a very unfortunately placed game in this schedule to where you're going to fall and lose this one. You will get a chance to bounce back at home, though, and you'll play Ole Miss. And as much as I am a fan of Austin Simmons and what I think this Ole Miss team will be, I'm going to take Oklahoma to get the win there at home. You follow that up with a road game in Knoxville, and I think at this point we'll kind of know what Tennessee is, and I'm going to be honest, I don't think it's all that much in 2025. I'm going to take Oklahoma to win that game on the road. Then you get a bye week, and you get to come out of that and face Alabama on the road. And if this game was coming anywhere else other than after a bye week, I'm likely taking Bama at home. since it is coming after a bye week, I'm taking Oklahoma at home or on the road. I think they're going to go into Tuscaloosa and get the job done and continue the roll here where you're sitting at 8-2 going into your final two games. In a home game against Missouri, as much as I love the Missouri defense, I have a hard time trusting the offense. I think at this point, we're going to be talking. I don't know if John Mateer is going to go to New York. I don't know if Jaden Ott's going to go to New York, but I think one of those two are going to be the key piece in this entire puzzle here that are in contention to have a nice little trip to New York for the Heisman Trophy presentation. I don't know if either of them make it, but I think they will be in the conversation. And I think that at this point, we're going to kind of know who it's going to be and why. I'm taking Oklahoma to get the job done. I think their offense will just be a little bit too much, and their defense a little bit too much for the Missouri offense. You close the season out on November 29th against LSU at home. In this one, I'm just taking a team that I think is outright better at this point, and that's LSU. Maybe only slightly, but I do think LSU is better. I think they have the better quarterback, better players. I think the offensive line looks a lot better. We've heard a lot of good things about their offensive line out of spring camp, and I think that should that be the case and should that continue, they'll run the ball better. The offense will be a little more dynamic. Help Garrett Nussmeier maybe be a Heisman contender himself. Do determine what I think of that. But all in all, 9-3, 5-3 in conference. It's a big time improvement over last season, which was 6-7, 2-6, and resulted in a loss to Navy in the bowl game. I think that if you're Oklahoma, you sit back and you take 9-3, and you're content with it. This is a team that is not going to go to Atlanta, could compete for it, but will not go to Atlanta. But even with these losses and the resume that they will have put together, a Michigan team that, I mean, God only knows what they're going to do. Auburn, who knows what they're going to be, but they're projected to be 7.5 or more. Texas, South Carolina, you lose both those games close. You lose to LSU close. Beat Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, and even Missouri. I mean, that 9-3 might just be enough to put you in that 12 spot. Who knows? Again, there's only so much time will tell where they sit there at the end of it. But Oklahoma, 9-3. Let me know, as always, what I may have missed. Of course, I'm not perfect, and I do unfortunately miss a thing or two from time to time or overlook something from time to time. But feel free to let me know what I may have missed, who I should be looking for on this team other than the guys I mentioned, or maybe there's somebody I mentioned that I just didn't elaborate on that you'd like to personally elaborate on. I don't mind that at all. Welcome to the conversation. Again, make sure you check out all the other videos we got on the channel so far. If you've got this far, please leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. Let me know what you think of this Oklahoma team. If you're not a fan, let me know your prediction. Do you think I'm far off? Do you think I'm not high enough on this team? And make sure you stick around. Tomorrow, we bring light to the Virginia Cavaliers. I'm excited to talk about a team that was improved last year and has improved their quarterback position, but have they improved anywhere else? Is this a team that really looks like they may maybe be a bowl team? They're over under currently sits at 6.5, by the way, which is a big number for Virginia. So we'll see. We'll talk about all that and more tomorrow. I thank y'all, and we will see you. We'll see you then.